Hi, this is StrategyCast, where smart marketers and bold business thinkers share the plays behind brand breakthroughs. I'm Lori Jones, President and CEO of Avocet Communications. If you've ever wondered how the most trusted brands stay consistent, relevant, and growth-focused, today's conversation is going to give you a blueprint. My guest, JP Carter of System Pavers, has helped shape a brand that's become a household name in the outdoor living industry by holding every marketing decision to 5 simple but powerful tenets. We're going to talk through those in a bit. Together, we'll unpack how those tenets, authenticity, trust, evolution, and growth, serve as a litmus test for every campaign and customer interaction. You'll walk away with a framework any marketer can apply to keep brand storytelling grounded, purposeful, and built to last.
A competitive edge starts with strategy, and strategy starts with knowing how to develop one. StrategyCast is a leading marketing podcast that serves up strategic insights, trends, and tips to help separate your business from the pack. Tune in weekly as host Lori Jones interviews bold marketing leaders who have priceless wisdom and are willing to share. Each episode explores cutting-edge approaches that have proven instrumental in transforming brands into industry trailblazers.
Welcome to the show, JP.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited. You are one busy man. Look at the brand that's in the market right now. I have so much fun watching it. It's absolutely incredible. And to have you on the show today to really dive into some of the core tenets that have brought it to the market is something I am so excited to unpack. Before we get there, tell us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, of course. So I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, and I grew up playing hockey all the way through college. And then I ended up actually taking a long pivot, and I joined the Marine Corps. And in the Marine Corps is where I learned to instruct, and I was actually a mountaineering instructor, and I enjoyed the ability to influence and inspire folks. And that is what actually translated into heading into marketing after I left the Marines. And then from there, I've worked in different industries, different categories, completely different approaches to different types of performance and growth marketing. And I've been here at System Pavers for a while now, helping this team grow as well.
Well, I have to first of all thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for protecting this country. We are taping this show the week of the Veterans Day celebrations. So thank you very, very much.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. It's interesting to me how working in a government sector can really translate well into private enterprise. And I think there's so many incredible components of process and procedure that really help translate. Talk to us about how that helped you move into private enterprise, your wonderful background.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because before joining the Marine Corps, I had zero interest in marketing. And then through my time there, learning about the importance of not necessarily being regimented, but being a little bit more formal and being more dedicated, if you will, and making sure that you're goal-oriented and you're solution-focused and making sure that if you have a goal, you figure out a way to get there. And that has carried true in my entire time with growth marketing, whether we're trying to hit a profitability mark or a revenue mark or a lead mark, whatever the KPI is, finding a way to get there, that resilience has paid off in a big way for me.
Yeah, it really has. What ultimately drew you to System Pavers?
It was more of a person than anything. So I worked with our CMO in a previous life, and Cassie Helm, I respect her in a big way. She's a wonderful marketer, leader, and a great person. And when we worked together, she left to go to System Pavers, and we stayed in touch. And I ended up starting a little bit of freelance work supporting the digital side, helping System Pavers. When I got to see behind the curtain and understand the opportunity there, I told her, I said, if there's ever an opportunity for me to help in a bigger way, I'd love to. And it worked out pretty quickly, and I've been here for a while now.
I think it's so cool, marketers and us included, when we're working with a brand, we really become a shepherd of that brand. We protect it. in a very, very unique way. Sometimes not always popular either, but it's something that I know is near and dear to our heart. Is, simply put, is it on brand or off brand? How has your career shaped the way you think about building and protecting a brand?
It's funny how often that thought goes through your head on a daily basis, whether that is an individual or a business or whatever it might be, and thinking like, is that true to who they are? Is that what they want to be doing long term, or are they trying to hit a flash in the pan sales opportunity, whatever it might be, and thinking through like, how are you playing chess, right? Are you setting yourself up long term with a tactic or a strategy like that? How are you growing your brand and your business to win the long game, not necessarily just hit your monthly sales mark?
Right. And I think bringing teams on and building that momentum and that culture around that is something that's very, very important. That we get involved in day in and day out. What makes, as we're diving into these core tenets here, what makes System Pavers a unique brand to represent?
System Pavers is interesting because I think a lot of folks in our category don't have the depth that we have. So we're fortunate that we have not only categorical depth, we have obviously a long history, but we also have geographic depth. So we have a little bit more muscle than a lot of folks in our industry do, and that helps us along the way. In a lot of different ways, whether it be the seasonality because of the geographical challenges or opportunities, and then also the categorical, where we can lean in on specific, whether it be a product line, a launch, an offer, an opportunity. There's plenty of different bells and whistles that System Pavers can lean back on when it's the right time to do so.
Yeah. One thing I loved about our pre-show discussion is in coming up with a framework for the show was the chat that we had around always defining who we are as we begin to really understand what is meaningful in the eyes of the buyer market out there. And it's a place that you always start. When you think of that phrase, who are we? How do you define System Pavers as a brand and as a company?
System Pavers is unique in that the category that we serve, a lot of times it's a product of function, not necessarily fashion, but we hold very near and dear to our hearts that we impact lives, and we have the opportunity to help develop something that really impacts and offers a platform for memories to be made. And it's something that we take a lot of pride in, that we're going to hopefully build a patio that you're going to have a baby shower on, or a wedding ceremony, or whatever the memory is, and it's there for all of it. And there are a lot of folks in our industry that don't necessarily take that same approach. It's more of a service, and while it is a service, we're helping a long-term opportunity for families.
It's so smart. And I think this is where a lot of companies get their marketing wrong. You're selling incredible, beautiful, colored concrete that forms a wall, that forms a walkway, that forms a patio, whatever it might be. And instead of selling how beautiful they are, you are selling the behaviors that you want to create on that.
That's
And
right.
that's where memories are made. It is the core approach, I think, where most marketers get what they get wrong. And it takes very bold approaches in order to say, no, we're not going to sell, octagonal shaped, stones. We're selling the memory it makes.
That's absolutely right. I think one of the most fun campaigns that I've had the opportunity to work here is a couple of years ago. We had our 30-year mark, and we have a massive portfolio of beautiful projects that we've built over all the years. It was when we were able to interview folks that did projects over 20 years ago, and they still have their same patio, and they talk about all the events that they've been able to host and all the memories that they made. And there have been, other than some maintenance over the years, it's the same project that somebody from System Pavers did back in 20, 25, 30 years ago. And it's great to see how that has really benefited, to your point, the memories, the life events.
Yeah. How has your definition of who we are evolved as the market and consumer expectations have shifted?
So that's a big one, because as consumer behaviors have shifted and as technology has shifted, we've had to pivot quite a few different ways. Where, think of 25 years ago when somebody thought about their patio, how it was drawn is very different, and the timeline for somebody to be able to do that is very different. Now, people's attention spans are extremely limited. So we've got to move much faster than we used to, and we have to have much more detail than we used to. So making sure that we're using cutting edge technology to do so, again, still going back to your original point, while being true to who we are, and being system pavers that people are proud to partner with, we have to evolve faster than our competition to maintain who we are.
Yeah. Well, you've done a great job at that. And that's a perfect segue into really talking about tenet number one, which is being authentic. What does authenticity mean to you and the System Pavers brand?
Yeah, I think that that's one of the most important things that we talk about in almost every meeting on the marketing team, and specifically on the performance side of that. There's plenty of opportunities in all areas of marketing to find quick hits, whether that be a value proposition or a promo or a sale or anything along those lines. But that's not really who we are. We know that there's plenty of folks in this industry, and in any industry really, where it's a race to the bottom and they're just trying to get revenue in quickly. Well, revenue is always important. We want to work on the right projects with the right people and do it the right way, and making sure that we are being true to who System Pavers has always been, and being what we consider, it's a cliche term, but being a best friend brand, being one that folks are proud to say, yeah, the System Pavers did our patio, or our outdoor kitchen System Pavers did it, not mom and pop partner from down the street. We care about the final product, and we care about the process of getting there, and we can't compromise that at any point.
No, you can't. And I think what makes that difficult is execution quite often. So we've got this great brand platform and brand strategy that we're going to work from, but the execution can really make or break it. How do you ensure that the marketing efforts remain genuine in the mindset of the consumer?
So we care a lot about how consumers digest our content. So we do quite a bit of testing on the marketing side to make sure that we, again, going back to being authentic and staying true to who we are, there's a lot of no's on our list, or a lot of things that we won't do, whether that be making claims, whether that be, again, content styles that aren't necessarily in line with what System Pavers is, and who System Pavers will be. So I think in our storytelling, in our positioning, and in our segmentation, we take a lot of pride in how we approach how a consumer will receive that, not necessarily how it looks on a whiteboard.
Yeah, I love that. Can you share an example of where this authenticity really came to life through a campaign that you deployed?
So I think when we think through some of our campaigns, I think the one I mentioned earlier today, one of the ones where we were looking back on our heritage and talking through how we put that together. Again, we could have done a promotion, a sale event, because it was an anniversary, a birthday, if you will. That's an easy one to go win. But I think the story of, this has benefited your neighbors, this has benefited your neighborhood, this has benefited people that you know, and here's their story, and letting our work stand for itself is more so in line. And I think that that's going to help us long term, again, better than any sale or promotion or anything short term ever can.
Right. I love that. There's so many incredible nuggets right there in that statement. Quote of the day thus far. I'm sure we're going to have a lot more here. Let's unpack being trustworthy.
Sure.
And I think there's a line in the sand that a lot of people look at from a trustworthy standpoint, and that being that they feel it needs to be delivered by a person. But we believe that being trustworthy is also delivered through communications in its consistency and its transparency and delivery. And the connection between employee and marketing, I think, is what really does create that trustworthiness. How do you define trust from a brand perspective at System Pavers?
So we define trust as being somebody that they're going to be not only okay with us impacting their homestead, but they're excited about it. And that goes a long way, right? So we have areas of marketing where we have folks, canvassers, if you will, door-to-door folks, and making sure that they represent the brand because they're knocking on doors and having conversations on porches and in living rooms, and then all the way through the sales process and the installation process, making sure that not only are they okay with having System Pavers partners or representatives in their lives, they're excited to do so. And that's more of the operations trust. We take the same approach with the marketing approach or with the marketing. So whether that be through earned media, we take a lot of pride in making sure that if you're allowing us to send you a text message or an email, or you follow us on Instagram, whatever it might be, we take pride in what that experience actually is. And we try to make sure that there's no like gloss over type messaging where it's like, it's just a text, it's just an email, it's just a Facebook post. If we're going to put it out there, we take a lot of pride in what that value actually is to somebody's day.
Yeah. What do you think are specific actions or principles that build trustworthiness with customers?
Yeah, I think never compromising what you're offering. And we, again, there's plenty of things that you can do that can help win short-term battles, but we want to make sure that everything that we say, everything that we offer, everything that we can potentially follow through on, we're going to do it. And it's never anything where we promise the lowest price, or we promise the fastest installation, or we promise the longest term lifespan of your project. We don't promise anything that we can't actually follow through on. Everything that I just mentioned, we can do, but we're never going to do or offer or promise or even say anything that we can't follow through on. Our word, you're only as good as your word, and that holds true to our marketing team for sure.
And everyone has a challenge arise. There's no doubt about it. How do you, when you do have a customer challenge arise, how do you take care of that? There's so many price compressions right now happening in the market. And someone that you may have quoted, a year ago is who's finally, trying to get around to doing it. I mean, there is going to be a price difference. There's no doubt about it. That's just one example. But training the team, putting the messages out there that really coincide with that trust, I think can be very difficult. Back to the original question, when a challenge arises, how do you overcome it?
With dirty hands. When we as a team tackle everything as though it matters, like that is a family event, whether that is somebody who's unhappy about whatever it might be. To your point, it could be a price, somebody that we quoted a year ago and now they're ready. But the world's a little bit different than it was a year ago, just like it'll be different in another year. It can be something where, we face a lot of challenges with HOAs and like little things that, not everything is smooth sailing, but we take every event very personally, and nobody in the business is above making sure that a customer is happy. And that goes all the way up to our executive team.
Yeah.
And it's very important that every little detail is taken care of the same way. And that's why our contact center is embedded in our marketing team, because those touch points there's a lot of synergy between them. And we make sure that we all work very closely together. So when there's a marketing event, the contact center knows about it. When the contact center team gets feedback, the marketing team knows about it, because that was, again, that teeter-totter needs to have balance.
Yeah. I love that it sits squarely within marketing as well. I think that's a very smart move. Most commercial teams that we work with have sales and marketing and CSRs all combined. So I think that's great. Evolution is the next tenet. And I think this is really important because quite often we see brands just do the same old thing too long. And one thing you and I love so much about marketing is that it is always evolving. There's always something new to be testing and trying out from an execution standpoint, but it's also how the customer buyer mindset evolves as well. So how does System Pavers decide when and how to evolve the marketing approach?
So again, I think I mentioned it earlier, but that we're always trying to well, we like to pride ourselves on being a step ahead, but at least staying on top of where the consumer expectations are. It's very important to us that we know that our core consumer, we have a handful of personas that we speak of fairly regularly, where they live, where they digest content, how they like to be spoken to, when they like to be spoken to, all of those things. It used to be very easy, right? We used to just send a lot of postcards out and a lot of letters and knock on doors and be at the home shows. And now, the technology has changed, the behaviors have changed, the consumer expectations have changed, and trying to stay in front of that and making sure that not only are we winning today, but we're training ourselves and dedicating ourselves to winning tomorrow and next week and next month. It's a point of pride for our performance marketing team and our growth team to making sure that we're set up well, not only into Q1 of 2026, but at this time and then beyond of next year.
Yeah, I think one of the most difficult, it's not a problem, but it's a situation that marketers need to solve, is the amount of advertising needed in order to deliver the amount of impressions needed to deliver the number of clicks or signals needed to ultimately make a buying decision. And you never really know until you start out. And, there's industry standards, of course, but you never really know until you start out with the numbers based on the budget you do or don't have, and then work backwards from there. And I think a good year under your belt is always good for anyone in that situation. Given the fact that the average buyer now needs to interact with a brand 26 to 27 times before making a buying decision, how do you get all that out on paper and evolve the marketing strategy as those numbers wax and wane, quite frankly?
Yeah, that number, it's funny that the 26 to 27, I remember when it was, 5 to 6, and it wasn't that long ago.
I know.
But no, I think one of the most important pieces for us as a brand that does have, like we spoke of, a lot of different branches and regions and products, we're always looking at how we can be better with our attribution. Because I think that is one of the keys to our success is obviously we want to make sure we're having the right touch points. But to your point exactly, right? If we can get the lead and get the appointment and then the sale at 21 points, should we be paying for 29? Should we be paying for
Right.
35? Because that's where some inefficiencies come, and that's where our ROAS starts to tip the wrong way. So attribution is one of the biggest pieces where we see evolution, and we're always talking about, even if we feel really good about our modeling mix, is it good enough for tomorrow? And looking at how we can continue to evolve and get better and be more efficient. That's how we have been able to scale, and that's how we'll be able to continue to scale.
No doubt about it. And I think back to, the creative strategy, the authenticity that we talked about earlier, and trust. When you've got the right creative approach in market, you're selling memories at the end of the day, then that is where that number can also be reduced. And a lot of people miss the boat entirely, because they're so focused on the features and what the product is and what it does. And that, to me, I mean, if you can get it down to a 15, it's purely because of the reputation you have in the market, the trust that you've built, the referrals. My next door neighbor has a great system pavers patio. Then that is where that trust is built and those numbers decrease.
You're spot on. And one of your last points is one of the other ones where we're always looking to evolve is our referral program, just because we know nothing carries more weight than you telling your neighbor that, hey, I had partner X with me. They did a fantastic job. I know you mentioned it. You might want to have a conversation with them as well, and everybody wins. And
Yeah.
that's the most efficient, easiest way.
What lessons can marketers take from the process of testing and learning and adapting that you've talked about from an attribution standpoint?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I learned early on in my career is the importance of being iterative. And when it comes to testing, making sure that it's not just for lesson learned, move on. Okay, lesson learned, sure. How do we take advantage of that? If we can gain a 10% opportunity, even if it's a less than a 1% opportunity, but if you can then scale that and then make it 2, and then make it 3, and then make it 5, then make it 10. I think the ability to take victories, whether they be small or large, and then maximize them is one of the most important pieces in testing, and making sure that even if the test is a loss, if you learn a negative, that's still a fantastic lesson learned, because then you learn what not to do, and you go with how to move forward in a better way. I had a presentation I gave earlier this year, and the whole thing was about failing forward and the importance of embracing failure. I think it's one of the things that a lot of performance marketers, it's like a taboo thing of, oh, it failed. That's a great nugget. That's a great lesson to learn, and to make sure that you're using that to your advantage to win long term.
Well, and having cultures that allow that, I think, is very, very important. Talk to us a little bit about the System Pavers culture.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a fantastic executive team, all the way from our CEO down, where we encourage growth and making sure that we are always keeping our eye on the prize. And whether, maybe it takes a little bit longer, you take a different path, as long as you continue to make forward progress towards that goal, you're doing the right thing. And if it was easy as just a straight line to success, we wouldn't be who we were, because everybody could be able to do it.
I love that. And all these tenets, I think, work so beautifully to the final one, which is asking yourself, will it help us grow?
Sure.
And that culture, that DNA, I think is very, very special. How do you define growth for System Pavers beyond just the financial metrics?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of different areas that can be growth. And that goes all the way to the individual, to the team, to the campaign, to the branch, to the region. There are so many elements of growth to System Pavers, and how we want to look and how we want to define that as a success. And as an organization, as a business, we look at growth a couple different ways. That's why we have focused in the last handful of years on categorical growth. We added decking to our product mix a couple years ago, which has been fantastic for us, because it's truly in line with our DNA. It aligns with pavers, it aligns with turf and lighting to create the beautiful environment that we can offer. But we've also had geographic growth, where we have been primarily West Coast, and we've expanded into migrating east into other branches that have the right audiences and the right personas and the right opportunities for System Pavers to align and be a valued member of the communities. So as a business, again, we look at it categorically and geographically, but then all the way through to how has marketing been able to grow? How has sales been able to grow? How has HR been able to grow? How has finance been able to grow? And in those teams, whether that be through career development, individual development, training opportunities, whether that be our internal, we've got a System Pavers University where we focus on our internal training and how can we improve there to make sure that if you ask somebody in HR about a product offering, they understand it, because everybody cares about who we are and our DNA.
Yeah. I think one of the most difficult discussions to have regarding growth and metrics is when people are so focused on SQLs and MQLs, and they're really not looking at the brand health. So back to the conversation we had a minute ago about measurement and the number of interactions that an individual has to have with a brand. People give up too early. So you might have some great signals, clicks that are coming through, and you're asking yourself why they're not converting, and what might just be needed is time at that
Sure.
stage. And that's where people, marketers and sales, I think, have a lot of arguments. No, it's not the right lead. It probably is. It just needs more time. And how do you have that conversation when it comes to this growth mindset?
I think that's the benefit of being an organization that's been around for a while, and we have historical data to work off of. We also know that there's a great variance between time of year for different regions, for different branches. And yes, obviously, there's always a sense of urgency. There's always how can we get across the finish line on this opportunity? But to your point, right? Somebody thinks differently. Let's take Denver specifically as an example. Right? They think differently about their patio in January than they do in June.
Mm-hmm.
And that process of acquiring leads and appointments and all the way through to completing projects. Again, it's different. And each time of year, it's also different depending on how we have found that consumer. Is it somebody that went to a home show looking for somebody to put in a patio? Or is it somebody that we appeal to essentially from cold marketing? That takes a little bit of time. And understanding how that data works is very beneficial when we have the historical data where we haven't been around for 18 months. So, it's essentially our first kick at the can. We have a good idea on that. As we've been saying all along, it always evolves, it always changes, but we have a very, very, very strong foundation in doing so. And I think that is one of the bigger benefits of System Pavers.
Yeah, I love that. What do you feel has created the most impact from a marketing point of view for the brand?
I could probably answer this 10 different ways. I think one of the most beneficial things for us is not just our digital transformation that we took on a handful of years ago, but now taking that to the next level and leveraging so many different new technologies to understanding the benefit of all the touch points. When I first came in, it was a big migration from a lot of direct mail to being on Facebook more or using email more. Now it's, hey, how are we using ChatGPT? How are we understanding our rankings on Perplexity and how that benefits our organic search? There's so many different things of understanding and using new technologies every day that digital transformation is now on steroids. And how do we get even smarter to use those technologies to continue to be more efficient and scale further?
I have to ask this question, and we were having this conversation 3 years ago. One of our clients was seeing a decrease in Google AdWords and Bing results, and I said, I think it's due to AI search, and they just didn't want to have it. And then finally, we see them ranking through ChatGPT in Google Analytics and agency analytics, and you're like, okay, it is happening. It's been happening for a long time. So speaking about evolution and going backwards for a second, how are you inserting AI search into the overall strategy?
So it's fun, honestly, because it's one of those things that necessarily can't be truly manipulated. You can influence it, but at this point, we can't necessarily dictate this. We can't buy that. So through our studies and through some good partners, we've identified how to benefit that. And a lot of it is just volunteered data, right? Going back to the first point of authenticity. So having a good ranking on reviews, whether that be Google reviews, Yelp reviews, just on feedback on forums. I don't want to say it's a North Star for us, but it's right up there to making sure that the volunteered feedback is positive. Then we also make sure that our content aligns with the narrative and the perspectives that folks want to digest content within, not necessarily where we're trying to over position ourselves, but making sure that how we format that content is in line with how a human wants to really digest it, how they want to take it in and make sure that it's actionable. So we talk about it all the time, and it's not necessarily that it's the lion's share of our traffic or our growth, but it's growing every single day. And it's something that I think all performance marketers and growth marketers need to be actioning and making sure that they're doing the right things to continue to put their business and their brands in the right spot to succeed as that new channel, if you will, evolves.
Agreed. And it reinforces the old rule of the importance of on-site SEO, social media, all, reviews and all those sort of things are one element of that, but it just reinforces the fundamentals. Like, let's go back to basics. That's what is really going to help this. There's no doubt about it. Any final words before I ask you our final segment, Better at Question, a question that you'd like to leave with our audience today regarding System Pavers and the incredible marketing job that you're doing?
I think when it comes down to it, I'm very excited about what we've been able to build recently and how we're continuing to evolve. And I think my only thought is, pushing those out there to continue to take the same approach of always be hungry to learn, always be hungry to see how we can be better, how you can be better, finding new opportunities, test, learn, humility, right? You don't know everything. None of us do.
Yeah.
As much as we might be experts in our space and be really good at what we do, the technology that's evolving changes that tomorrow. So embrace that and have eagerness and curiosity that helps you grow.
Yeah, well, you've just given us lots of incredible ideas for the Better At answer here. We launched Better at the beginning of the years to help marketers sharpen the everyday skills that make a big difference, like listening, collaborating, prioritizing, and communicating with impact. What's one thing that you've learned to be better at that's made a measurable difference in how you lead, work, and show up in your role?
I think the importance of collaboration can never be understated. And I think that goes to how we mentioned the partnership with the contact center and hearing that feedback directly from consumers. That also goes to the sales side. And I think there's a lot of times there's that healthy game of tug of war between marketing and sales. And I think that if both are actually pulling in the same direction, it's extremely powerful in understanding that consumers are usually giving you the answers, you're just not listening to it. And if you are listening to it, it makes your jobs a whole lot easier if you partner and understand what are the questions they're asking. How can I answer that upstream? And again, the collaboration and the partnership and the listening goes a long way.
Yeah, it certainly does. And speaking of that, what is the best way for our audience to get in touch with you? I'm sure they're going to have some great questions after this show.
Yeah, I'd love to have those conversations. I think LinkedIn's probably the easiest way. I think there's probably a couple others, but JP Carter, System Pavers, that's me.
Yeah, and I'm Lori Sartorius Jones on LinkedIn. That's the best way to get in contact with me as well. I tell you, JP, what an incredible conversation, so much depth. We sincerely appreciate you sharing so much of the playbook. We definitely learned a lot today. Thank you so much for your appearance on StrategyCast.
Thanks for having me. A lot of fun. Appreciate it.
That's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on today's show. We hope your strategic brains are spinning with new ideas and bold inspiration that will elevate your strategies and marketing know-how.